boxes. And there's two different types of transitional phrases. One is what writers use to lead into their evidence or quotes. So we were saying when we have let me share again my notebook. So remember how when we've been writing our evidence pieces, remember we always have to show where in the story does it say or does it show how people are mean to Maya, how Chloe is unkind. So what we've been doing is we've been saying, for example, blank. We always start a sentence with, for example, Chloe said she's not my friend. Look. Oh, you guys can't see that. Let me do my new share. Here we go. All right. So we have, for example, Chloe said she's not my friend. Also, Kendra said, in our old paragraphs, we had said, for example, Maya asked Chloe to play. Also, Maya smiled at Chloe. Same here. For example, Chloe won't smile or play with her. Also, the students talk about her. So what we are doing, which I think is what you guys got a little confused on, and that's okay because it is a little bit confusing, okay? What we're doing and what you guys were supposed to do yesterday is we are taking these transitional phrases. So look at this box. I'm going to call this box 1. In the story it says one part of the story that shows this is when in the beginning, for example, in the middle, by the end. All we are doing when I say transitional phrases is that we are replacing these two phrases, for example, and also. So instead of writing, for example, Chloe won't smile or play with her, we're going to say one part of the story that shows this is when Chloe won't smile with her. In the beginning, for example, Chloe won't smile or play with her. How could we replace this also? Well, we could say one part of the story that shows this is when the students talk about her clothes. We could say in the story, it says, we could say, instead of saying, for example, we could say in the story, it says, Chloe said she's not my friend. In the story, Kendra said, I have a new name for her, never knew. So that is all we're doing in box 1, with box 1. We are just replacing these two words, for example, or 3 words, for example, and then also. We're going to keep our evidence. We're still keeping our evidence, but we're just exchanging this phrase and this word for one of these phrases to make it sound nicer. So what you're going to do right now.
I already did one.
1 second. Raise your hand, bud. So some of you might have already did that. Can anybody share an example of their new sentence? So yesterday, what you were supposed to do was take the for example, cross it out, and you were supposed to come up with a different sentence using one of these phrases. Did anybody do that? Oscar, do you want to share what you wrote?
Yes.
Okay, what did you write? Now we all should be listening because especially if you didn't write anything down, you need to be listening.
All right, so when I replaced for example for yesterday, I looked at not my friend for an example, and I put in the story, Chloe said she's not my friend. by replacing, for example,
With
I said,
story says.
she's not, for example. So after that, Chloe said, for example, not my friend. And then I put, Chloe said, she's not my friend.
Good. So you use this phrase in the story, it says.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Does anyone else have another example that they replaced, for example, with? Does anyone else have another one?
And I also had another idea, but I didn't use it. So
What's your other
Yeah.
idea?
my other idea was in the story, Chloe said, no, you can't play. And I replaced that with also.
Okay, so you replaced also with the in the story. Is that what you did?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, good. So if you did not do this, let's do it right now. So what we are doing is we crossed out for example. So do that now if you haven't done it. Remember, this is your paragraph with the quotes in it. Quotes are things people say. So cross out for example, and we're going to say, instead of for example, we're going to replace it with this phrase. One part of the story. Now, Oscar, you don't have to do anything because you already did it, bud. One part of the story that shows this is when. Okay, so there's my new phrase. And I found it in this box number 1. We all should be looking at the screen. I found it in this box number 1. One part of the story that shows this is when. And then I'm just going to write exactly what I have. Is when Chloe said, comma, quotation, she's not my friend. Period, end quote. All right, go ahead and write that if you don't have anything down. Write it underneath your paragraph. So look, all I did was I took this sentence. For example, Chloe said she's not my friend. And I crossed out for example, and I put one part of the story that shows this is when Chloe said she's not my friend. So do you see how I just replaced the phrase, for example, with the phrase, one part of the story that shows this is when. I kept my same evidence, kept my same quote. All I did was change, for example, to one part of the story that shows this is when. All right, so write that down if you do not have anything written. All right. Now, box number 2. The second part that we had to add, look, I put a star here because after my quote, after my evidence, which my evidence is this quote, I have to add a sentence that explains why this quote is important, why it matters. So look
I
at,
also did that.
you did that? Okay, so look at these phrases. You could start it out with this is important, this means, in other words, this matters because, this shows how, the character could have, but instead. All right, Oscar, do you want to share what you wrote for this one?
My box 2 thing to show was important from in the story, Chloe said she's not my friend.
Yep.
I write it because it's a claim.
Okay.
That people Maya.
So you're close, yeah. So we could say, so I think you were trying to say this matters because, so let's start our sentence with that. This matters this matters because, so start out your sentence with that. This matters because it shows that Chloe doesn't want to be Maya's friend. This is why this quote is important. So go ahead and write this down if you don't have anything written. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we have our paragraph, we've kind of been editing it, right? We've been editing it, making it sound nicer. So what we're gonna do now is take our edits and rewrite this first part of the paragraph, okay? We're not gonna write this part yet, the blue part. We're not gonna write that yet. We're just gonna rewrite this first part, okay? So I want you to do the same thing. So I'm gonna actually open to another page. Oh my goodness. All right. I'm gonna try to pull this up. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna rewrite this, okay? So I know my first two sentences are gonna be the same. So you guys should be writing this too. But remember, replace, if you have a different box 1 and box 2, replace those with yours, okay? So our book is called Each Kindness. Period. My claim is that people are mean to Maya. All right, so far that stayed the same, right? Because if I look at my old paragraph, I have our book is called Each Kindness. My claim is that people are mean to Maya. But remember, I took this part away and I revamped it into this sentence. So I'm going to copy this sentence now. One part of the story that shows this is when, so remember, instead of saying, for example, I am saying this instead. One part of the story that shows this is when Chloe said she's not my friend. Okay, so go ahead and write this down because, one second, because we remade the sentence to make it sound nicer. We added this transition, okay? And then what we're gonna do after this sentence is we add our reason why this matters, which was our box 2. And we said that sentence is this matters because it shows that Chloe doesn't want to be Maya's friend. So we need to make sure that we add this sentence to our new paragraph. So I'm gonna go ahead and start writing that now. Our old paragraph says, our book is called Each Kindness. My claim is that people are mean to Maya. For example, Chloe said she's not my friend. That's it. But our new paragraph says, our book is called Each Kindness. My claim is that people are mean to Maya. One part of the story is that shows this is when Chloe said she's not my friend. This matters because it shows that Chloe does not want to be Maya's friend. So my new parts of this are this part that I'm highlighting, and then this whole sentence that we added that shows how and why this is important. All right, so go ahead and get that finished writing down, and then we're going to do the same thing we did for this evidence, this piece of evidence. For example, Chloe said she's not my friend. We're going to do the same thing with the also Kendra said, I have a new name for her, never knew. So go ahead and get that down, and then we're going to go ahead and work on this part, this second piece of evidence we have, and then we'll be done for the day, okay? So I'm going to give you guys about 2 more minutes to get this paragraph down, or these sentences down. All right. So now we are trying to replace, let's look back over here. Now we're trying to replace this phrase also. Let's go ahead and look back at what options we have. So our options are, we could say, in the story it says, or in this case it would be, in the story Kendra says. We already used this one, so let's skip that one. We could say in the beginning, for example, but that wasn't really in the beginning. That was kind of in the middle of the story. So we could say in the middle, Kendra said. So which one do we want to use? Do we want to say in the story, Kendra says, or in the middle, Kendra said? Which one? Raise your hand. Who wants to pick? Kamaya, which one do you want to use?
In the story it says.
Okay. So we're gonna say, we're just gonna go ahead and write it directly in our paragraph. Okay, so we're gonna say in the story, but I'm gonna replace it with Kendra. Kendra says, so we replace that word also, crossing it out because we're replacing it with in the story Kendra says. And now look at your old paragraph and let's just say, what did she say? She says, I have, oh, sorry guys, I realize you can't see. A new name for her, period, never knew, period, end quote. All right, I'm gonna highlight this to show what we changed. So we just changed the in the story Kendra says. We kept the same quote. This is the same from our old paragraph, this quote. But we're just changing the first part of the sentence to make it sound nicer because in the story, Kendra says, I have a new name for her, never knew. That sounds so much nicer than also, Kendra says. Sounds a lot nicer. But we're not done yet. We came up with a new phrase to introduce this quote. But now, remember, we have to come up with a reason. We have to explain why our evidence matters. So look at all these phrases we can use. I'll give you guys a minute to get this down. All right, so here are all the phrases we could start our next sentence with. So remember our other sentence when we were explaining why Chloe's quote matter, we said this matters because it shows that Chloe does not want to be Maya's friend. How can we start this explanation for Kendra's quote? We could say, this is important. This means, in other words, this shows how the character could have, but instead. Does someone want to pick a transition phrase for us to use for this sentence? Who wants to pick one? Who wants to pick one from my box showing? Susan.
This is important.
Perfect. Okay, so let's say this is important.
Selena,
What?
I can't keep up.
Okay, I'll slow down. Okay, so this is important because why is this quote important? Why is this quote important? What is it showing us? Why is this quote important? Who has an answer? Why is this quote important? Susan.
This quote is important because this shows that nobody likes Maya.
Good, perfect, because it shows that nobody likes Maya. All right, I'll leave that up for a minute. I'll give you guys a few minutes to copy this down, okay? And I'm going to highlight this because this is you don't have to write this part down. I'm going to write it down, okay? Give me a minute. I'm still on. Yeah, it's fine. All right, guys. Diana, what's up? Diana, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm already tired. I'll write all of that down.
Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to put this picture on our Canvas writing page, okay? You have no homework for writing today, okay? Because we had such a delay with everything. Your only homework is to finish writing this paragraph out, which I'll put on our Canvas writing page, okay? Make sure to check content today. You have 2 videos to watch. And I want to thank you guys for coming back, even though I had all that internet problem, all those internet issues, okay? All right, if you need help, come to office hours, okay? Raylan, don't forget you have to meet with Miss Spraggins during office hours. All right, bye.
I will be the co-host and I'm the go now.